Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1450B, and today's date is December 17th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, The Corporate Media and the Cabal Are Now Being Exposed in Front of the World. Now, before I get started, I have two announcements. First of all, the report that I did on Friday, I misspoke when I was reading the statistics for H&M. Their sales dropped by 4%. Their stocks dropped by 30%. And I put the correction on the YouTube video. I also put it on the X22Report.com site, so you can see the correction there. My other announcement is I uploaded an interview with Claudio Gross. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. All you have to do is go to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight, it'll bring you right to the video, or you can go to X22Report.com or NewsSentinel.com, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you'll see the video there, or go to Steemit, that's steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interview right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as we can see, when Obama was president, when Clinton was president, and all the past presidents, we see that things are definitely changing right now. Everything that they've done has to be reversed, and a lot of people are not going to like it because they were fed false information during these past presidents' terms, thinking that we had problems when we really didn't. One of them was climate change, and I know a lot of people are going to argue about this, and we need to realize that right now, climate change is not a national security threat. And we see right now, the Trump administration has rolled back the climate change as a national security threat, and this no longer applies at this point. He also rolled back net neutrality. And I see a lot of people out there arguing, complaining. And remember, this was created by Obama. It's been in effect since 2015. So we had the internet all those other years up into 2015. He put this into place with George Soros, which was pushing this through millions of dollars of funding. Now, lost in all the theoretical debate about how the evil ISPs will create and have and not divide internet access is the reality that it already exists along the massive subsidies to the biggest bandwidth pigs on the planet: Facebook, Google, Twitter, Netflix, and the porn industry. Under net neutrality, these platforms flourished along with the rise of the mobile internet, which is now arguably more important than the desktop. You know, the one that's in your home and office. Google and Apple control the on-ramps to the mobile web in a way that net neutrality proponents can only dream the bandwidth providers like Comcast and AT&T could. Because in truth, they can't. Consumers are ultimately the ones who decide how much bandwidth costs, not the ISP. Remember an open free market? And there's competition when you have an open and free market. This is why the prices come down. We decide how much we can afford. But the government came out and tried to convince you that these ISP providers were going to start charging a lot more money, which is absolutely ridiculous. Because if that is true, when you have real competition, we would see prices going up all over the place. But when you have competition, they're competing, they give you more, so the prices come down. Net neutrality took pricing of bandwidth out of the hands of consumers. It handed the profits from it to Google, Facebook, and all the other advertiser spamming video ads, malware scams, and everything else. Google and Facebook ad revenue soared under net neutrality because advertisers' needs are not aligned with Google's bottom line, but with consumers. And because of that, the price paid to deliver the ad, Google's cost of goods sold, thanks to net neutrality, was held artificially low, and Google, Facebook, and the porn industry pocketed the difference. They grew uncontrollably. In the case of Google and Facebook, uncontrollably powerful. That difference was never passed on to the ISP, who could then in turn pass it on to the consumer. And that was thanks to net neutrality. And we see right now, net neutrality gave subsidies to the big players. Net neutrality was a Trojan horse designed to replicate the old shout-based advertising model of the good old days of print and TV advertising. It was a way to control the megaphone and promote a particular point of view. And we see right now that George Soros and the Ford Foundation are the two biggest lobbyists for net neutrality. They made this up to make you believe, because what they wanted it to fall under the FCC regulations, just like TV, newspaper, and the rest, so they can control what was being put out there. And if you noticed, Google, Facebook, they were able to ban anything they wanted. They could change their terms of service. They could do whatever. And again, Google wrote a lot of the laws, just like the insurance companies wrote the Affordable Care Act. Think about what's going on here. The whole thing was a scam to make you believe something. Remember, anytime they pass these type of laws, Affordable Care Act, USA Freedom Act, the Patriot Act, it always means the opposite. Net neutrality never meant free and open internet. We already had a free and open internet. And they had to trick you into thinking that, well, if we don't do this, it's going to cost a lot of money. And, they try to make all other things come into play to make you believe that this is why this needs to be done. This was part of their brainwashing. We see right now with Trump recognizing Jerusalem, we see the Middle East, they are banding together, and we might be seeing a two-state type of push going on right now, not by the U.S. or any other country, but by the Middle East, because we see already that Turkey is going to open up an embassy in East Jerusalem, saying this is the capital of Palestine. And it looks like this might be pushed on the world, where the U.S. was hemming and hawing and things like that to have a two-state an agreement. Russia was trying to push a two-state agreement, and it looks like this might have been done to make the Middle East come together to push this plan of peace, and I don't think this is what the Cabal really expected. We see when Tillerson was out there and he came up with the idea of having talks with North Korea with no preconditions, this was a feeler to put out to see what type of reaction was out there. And we can see already that this was done on purpose because they wanted to prepare the public opinion for peace talks with Russia, with North Korea, with China, because the corporate media was out there pushing the idea we're going to war, that Kim Jong-un is crazy, he's going to fire missiles, at the U.S. And we already see that Mattis was out there saying that, yeah, they don't have the technology yet. And we looked at this and we saw that their missiles during re-entry always exploded. They never had the technology. The purpose of this was to get them to a nuclear state so the Cabal wouldn't go in there and, push regime change. In Iran, what Obama did at the point with the P5+1 deal was to keep Iran from becoming a nuclear power. That was the real objective to that, because they realized if they can keep them from becoming a nuclear power, where they created a nuclear weapon, later on, once they captured Syria, they'd be able to get into Iran. Remember, the war was supposed to be already finished, where they would capture Iran. That would be the last country. But the war in Syria was going on for a very long time, and they needed something where they could make sure that Iran never became a nuclear power. And of course, what they still want to do is they still want to get into Iran. This is why Nikki Haley was out there trying to convince everyone that, Iran is supplying weapons to Yemen. And what we're seeing right now is that the U.S. allegations of Iran missiles in Yemen are being met more with questions and skepticism than anything else right now. And we see right now that she claimed to expose Iran as an illegal source of weapons used by Yemeni forces. Her props were alleged missile parts, and we discussed this before, and she tried to push the idea that Iran right now was in breach of UN Resolution 2231 that restricts such transfer of missile parts and things like that to other countries. And we see right now that this was all fake, phony, and false because she never made the connection. And this is where the Cabal always screws up. They never make the real connection and the proof of the connection that the country or group or whatever they have actually supplied the equipment or the parts or the weapons or anything else, or, used terrorism or anything like that, like in the case with Assad where he was gassing his own people. They only show the aftermath or the missile or whatever they have. and they never show the connection. It's almost showing the weapon on a murder case and saying, this is the weapon, that is the person that used it, but never making the connection and linking the two. This is what the propaganda has been doing for a very long time, and it's falling apart because the countries around the world are looking at this and saying, yeah, this makes no sense, because there are many variants, there are many different manufacturers of this missile, North Korea being one of them, the Soviet Union Scuds, and we see right now that all of this is not going to work. And I think what is happening right now is the administration of Trump, those individuals that are trying to push out the cabal and bring to light what is really going on here, it looks like they're letting these people put on their show, look like fools, and then calling them out afterwards. They're exposing these individuals, the corporate media, if you can see, look what's happening. You can see what's happening with those government officials, and they're letting all these people come out and do what they do best, come out and tell you why we should go to war. And then come back and say, yeah, this doesn't make sense. This person doesn't know what they're talking about. Maybe we should remove this person. Right now, Mattis is out there, and he is rejecting war on Iran. And he refuted claims that the U.S. is preparing for war on Iran, even with Nikki Haley out there saying that we need to go to war with Iran. And we see right now, Iran is joining the Eurasian Economic Union. By early next year, they will be part of the Russian system, and it's pretty much game over at this point. Out in Libya, we already see General Haftar is out there, and he's declared that the country's international recognized government based in Tripoli is no longer legitimate. Why? Because the mandate has expired. Remember, this government was created by the UN, by the US, and not by the people. General Haftar is out there saying that he is working for the people. He wants the people to elect the government, not the UN, not the United States. And right now we see that the UN, the internationally recognized government, well, their mandate has expired, and it's time for them to leave. We see all the paid mercenary groups, the terrorist groups that have been defeated in Syria and Iraq. Well, it looks like they are fleeing, and the cabal is helping them flee. They're mobilizing them and bringing them into different areas to maybe train these paid mercenaries for something else. And we see right now that they're going to try to use them once again, but what we're seeing is that they're backed into a corner. We see they're losing North Korea, they're losing Iran, they're losing the Middle East, and the cabal and the corporate media, they're both being exposed big time. And this will continue. They're going to create more chaos because they need distractions, and they can see everything that they're trying is not working. And they do have the doomsday event waiting in the wings, because when all else fails, they will pull out the doomsday event, which would be some type of an attack in Europe, United States, an event maybe in North Korea or Syria or Iran, to make us believe that we need to go to war, to distract us from everything that is happening right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.